One of
my
our
gosh.
wonderful makeup artists. When the earthquake was happening, she put her coat on and she was like, "Jesus is coming.
I'm out.
I'm out. I'm leaving. We've got a solar eclipse. We've got the
ran down the
earthquake.
hallway.
She ran down the hallway.
The rapture is here.
The rapture's here. And then also I learned that the cicadas are coming. Cicadas.
Although I love
for the first time in like
cicada.
100 years.
No.
For the first time in many, many years.
No,
And so-
every 17 years this happens.
well, that's not what I read, but maybe, maybe you know better.
For a long time as a co-host on The View, Sunny Hostin acted like she was America's sweetheart, but that was never the case. Interestingly, for a significant part of her life, she had no idea who she really was. While she was busy calling out people for their wrongdoings, she really didn't know that she had a hand in the dark side of history. Well, maybe not exactly, but she comes from a family that history might not remember so kindly, and Greg Gutfeld destroyed her when he discovered this.
When you with that information, it's okay to change your mind. It's good to change your mind, but you should acknowledge that has happened.
If she is shaming descendants of this, will she continue to do that when she is now one of them, Dana? And it is funny. She is so wrapped up in identity, and she had no idea who she was.
Well, now we understand why she always makes Whoopi get the coffee. I don't know. That's not true.
That's not true.
But you think about things that she said and how offensive they are.
Yeah.
Well, karma.
Yeah, it is karma.
Karma is an understatement. This is sweet poetic justice. One of the most vocal people on TV about race turns out to have slave-owning ancestors? Oh my gosh. You couldn't write a better script even if you tried. I seriously hope we never hear Sunny Hostin make another racially charged comment for the rest of her TV career.
America's perception of Hostin changed when she decided to take part in a PBS show which helped people trace their genealogy. If only she had known what the outcome of this move would be, she wouldn't have made any attempts at appearing on this show. Well, it is a little too late now. So, instead of talking about what she could have done better or differently, everyone's attention is on the outcome of her appearance on this show.
We're starting a little differently this morning. Sunny, you were just on an episode of Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates Jr.
Yeah. And he gave me some surprising revelations about my family history. You know, I was really reluctant. I don't know how you felt when you did it, Whoopi, but I was really reluctant to do it because I just sensed that there could be something in my family history that would be disappointing. Negative, yes. I thought I was going to have that kind of moment. And Skip had asked me to do it for a long time. And I finally decided to do it because I thought it'd be helpful for my children and my children's children to know what their real history was, you know? But what I found out was that my mother's family, while they are Puerto Rican, they actually originate from Spain. And the reason that they moved to Puerto Rico is because the slave trade had been sort of canceled in Spain and then Curacao, and then they moved all of their slaves to Puerto Rico. And so the family business, I had been told that they were printers and journalists, but they were in fact enslavers.
Hostin discovered something shocking. This discovery was completely against everything she stood for. She came from a lineage of slave owners. So, in some way, her family was a part of the problem. Now, since she always sat on a righteous chair and judged a lot of people, the fact that her lineage wasn't all innocent created a massive buzz on social media. You see, while lots of people on social media could only talk about the problem, Gutfeld took things a step further. He just didn't talk about the problem. He openly and directly criticized Hostin on his show. While criticizing her, he made it clear that she didn't struggle to call out other people for their wrongdoings and made it a point of duty to speak about things that were historically wrong in the United States. She didn't give her own family's wrongdoing the same attention she gave to those of other families. Although not everyone gave thought to what Sunny did, a great deal of people were concerned about families' involvement in slave trade, and if she would take responsibility for what her family did in the past in very much the same way as she expects others to account for the wrongdoings of people that they are connected to.
Spain and then Curacao, and then they moved all of their slaves to Puerto Rico. And so the family business, I had been told that they were printers and journalists, but they were in fact enslavers. And my mother, so
A hush fell over the
it was
audience.
deeply disappointing. And it's deeply disappointing because my mother really identified as Puerto Rican. She was part of the civil rights movement, and she was deeply ingrained in Black culture, and identified herself as Black for race, but Hispanic for ethnicity.
Okay.
But her race is white. She's European.
Yeah.
I know. It's
Yeah.
weird because when you look at her, my mother's blonde and she has light eyes, and my whole family looks like that. So I think inside, I sort of knew that this was my history, and that's probably why I didn't want to do it. And I spoke to my mom about it. She was deeply disappointed. She actually cried about it.
Hostin might be used to being involved in controversies, but she could have avoided getting into any trouble involving her family tree if she hadn't tried to follow a trend popular among American celebrities. This controversy in particular started when she took part in a show titled Finding Your Roots. This show is basically a means of entertainment for the average person. However, it isn't all about entertainment for the average celebrity. For celebrities, it is basically a platform through which they find out information they never knew about their heritage. More often than not, they find out details they never expected, and that was exactly the case with Sunny. The co-host of The View was probably expecting to discover something juicy about her family. Sadly, she was shocked by what she found out. Additionally, it basically stood against everything she had been advocating. While featuring in Finding Your Roots, Hostin realized that her great-grandfather had kept slaves. This discovery most likely won't have meant a lot to the average person, but we can't say the same for Hostin, who was visibly very shocked. Although Sunny's expression of shock got her the sympathy of several viewers, what she did next changed everything. Since things didn't turn out how she had expected, she didn't give this discovery the credit that it deserved. She simply referred to this discovery as a product of its era.
She actually cried about it. And then she said, maybe that's why I have been so connected to Black culture, because it's an atonement in my spirit. And I received that. I also found out that, and there were slaves on both sides of her family, mothers and fathers, but we are 7% indigenous Puerto Rican, Taino, so I'm proud of that. And then I also found out about my father's family, his family, all slaves, then sharecroppers, but once they got their freedom, one of my ancestors, his name is Dean Cummings, and we use, my maiden name is Cummings, and we use the name Dean in our family. A lot of cousins are named Dean. I have this book of life. Thank you, Skip.
Yeah.
It's very thick. I have an ancestor, my third great grandfather, immediately registered to vote, even though he was illiterate. And he voted with an X, Dean Cummings with an X. And then he was threatened with lynching by the KKK, by others in the South, and he voted the next year.
It might be easy to put the blame on the entire show and its process, as several celebrities that show up end up finding it difficult to process the information they have received. Nonetheless, there was something off about Hostin's reaction. Of course, she was surprised, but her reaction was a little too casual. This is perhaps because she finally realized that the idea of holding people accountable for wrongdoings in history, which they might be linked to, was finally catching up with her. Sunny had made it clear that injustice done a long time ago could affect things centuries after. However, when it became obvious that her lineage was just as guilty as those of others, she shook things off like things done in the past had no effect on the present or future.
Information, I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
I can't stop laughing. Are they seriously saying that Sunny Hostin's ancestors were slave owners? Wasn't she just talking about reparations? It looks like she might need to get her checkbook ready.
Fact of life. Interesting change of tune. For more, we go to our chief Sunny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
Well, first, I just want to go on the record to let everyone know that I am very much against slavery.
Okay, good.
Very brave to say that on this panel. You know, karma, definitely. I mean, it's one thing. It's going to be so awkward on, you know, new episodes of The View when she tries to pull the race card.
Yes.
And then she's like, America is racist. And then they're like, yeah, they might be racist, but they're not like slave owner racist. like somebody that we.
That's so true.
You know?
If Sunny had the power, she most likely would have tried to make the video of the discovery of her lineage disappear. Well, she didn't do that, and clips from this moment went viral, and as one would expect, social media was agog because of the inconsistency surrounding her person. From this moment, it became obvious that Hostin said one thing when she meant another. A lot of folks already knew what Hostin was up to and were clearly uncomfortable, but couldn't speak up. Well, one man made the difference, and that is none other than Fox News host Greg Gutfeld. Anyone could have made a comment about Sunny's reaction to her ancestors being slave owners, but not many people would have made the impact that Gutfeld made. You see, Gutfeld has a style that can best be described as confrontational. That's not all. His comments are usually unfiltered and unapologetically ferocious. So, when he decided to give some attention to Sunny's reactions to the discovery of her lineage, it was obvious that things weren't going to be funny. Sunny's reaction to news of her generation owning slaves was a big one and had already gone viral. However, just when it seemed like this news couldn't get more popular, in came Greg's thoughts, which were about how forceful Sunny would be when dealing with shortcomings of her own ancestors. One might think he was taking things too far, but he wasn't. Sunny had a thing for calling out other people forcefully, so it was only normal for him to draw attention to how hard she was going to be in a situation that concerned her.
And the next year, and the next year, and the next year. So we voted 9 times with the threat of lynching. And, you know, they say in Puerto Rico, the blood calls you. And voting is so important to me. You know, you guys know I go to voter drives, I drive seniors to voting polls. I've never missed a vote. My family thinks it's crazy. I'll vote for anything, local something, constable, I'm there. And I think I get that from my ancestors. I really do. I think you carry your ancestors with you. So it was really eye-opening. So there were good things, there were not so good things. I also found out that on my father's side, the grandfather that I thought I had was not my grandfather. Oh, wow. There was another person. And so we are establishing a relationship with that family, and I have 5 uncles and aunts that I didn't know about. And so that's kind of cool that my kids now, and my father has 5 siblings that he didn't know about. And he's the eldest. So that's I thought that was great. And the last reveal is that...
Is it who you're related to?
Yes, I have a cousin too, Whoopi. Anthony Ramos from Hamilton.
Oh! He's cute.
Isn't he cute? He is my cousin, and I reached out to him, and it's kind of cool because he was the youngest actor in the original Broadway play of Hamilton, and he is multi-talented. And I've interviewed him before, but I didn't know we were cousins. I interviewed him for the Puerto Rican Day Parade. I hope that they still let me host the Puerto Rican Day Parade.
Well, you have a little bit still left in there, right? Is there no Puerto Rican in there at all?
No, I have 7%. 7% indigenous, but the thing about Puerto Rico is Puerto Ricans are Spanish, they're Native American, and they're African.
Right.
It didn't quite seem like Greg's criticism was relevant, but the truth is it was a huge attack on her personality. Hostin seemed like a perfect person in front of her fans. She had earned the right to judge people, or so she thought, but she was wrong. She actually got the opportunity to have the moral standing to call out people as freely as she wanted, but she didn't take advantage of it. You see, Sunny took advantage of her position as a co-host on The View to call out historical figures. She blatantly labeled some of them villains and racists. Although she wasn't entirely wrong to have called them out, she should have done just the same to her own ancestors. If she couldn't call out her own ancestors, then she wasn't supposed to call out any other historical figure.
With what their husbands are doing.
So first of all, Judge, thank you for protecting the patriarchy.
Yes,
On behalf of all men, we really appreciate that.
You know what's stunning? I love it when a woman says she knows how other women think, okay? And I hate it when they actually do a divide like that. But you know, if Sunny Hostin thinks that we're all protecting white men and the white patriarchy and that we can't think for ourselves, I wonder why it is that she is capable of thinking for herself. But I'm not going to go there. The amazing thing is you have to wonder, well, then how did did Barack Obama get elected twice? So I guess those white women, just when they see a black person who's qualified, I mean, they clearly elected Barack Obama. It didn't happen without white women. So right there is the failure of her whole theory. But the thing about the left is they are so hate-filled. I mean, DeSantis is a Mussolini. They talk about him like he's like
that.
China, Cuba, North Korea. Government-censored media is what Joy Reid says. Are you kidding? Government-censored media is when the FBI meets with Twitter and says, don't you dare put anything in there about that Russian disinformation, that Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, they are so dug in on hating when they created the hate, when it all started with Hillary Clinton and the basket of deplorables. And then it goes to the disgusting MAGA. I mean, MAGA anymore has a negative connotation thanks to Joe Biden and his blood red background and the people with the guns. I mean, they are just, they after a while, you don't listen to them. And by the way, they're not using Hitler anymore. It's now Mussolini. Okay.
Sunny called out people for various reasons. However, she seemed to focus more of slavery. She most likely had a disdain for the fact that some folks felt it was okay to own people at some point in the history of the United States. And with this disdain, she called out people who tried to defend slave trade in any way or tried minimizing its effect. Interestingly, here she was, doing the exact same thing. Gutfeld didn't call out Sunny on a random video. He did so on his show, and as the big media personality that he is, this video went viral and attracted lots of comments. Some were in support of his views, others were not. However, regardless of what they thought, their comments simply made clips of Greg's views go viral. Fans in support of Greg's point of view were glad that finally, someone was letting the world see Sunny for who she really is. Others, on the other hand, felt she couldn't do much about her discovery because she was reacting to a genealogical bombshell, and it was okay that her view of the world wavered.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter. So instead, let's check out this clip from Monday's episode of The View when the ladies put their science caps on and discuss the solar eclipse.
Initially, Sunny was the only one affected by her actions after discovering what her ancestors were like. However, with time, The View got affected. Sunny's actions and reactions were loud and had lasted a while. However, just as it seemed like everything was dying down, something fresh came up. Gutfeld, who felt like he needed to do more harm to Sunny, or maybe let the world know who she really was, spoke about Melania Trump's $100 million lawsuit. On the surface, there was no correlation between Melania Trump's $100 million lawsuit against the co-hosts of The View and Sunny's discovery of her ancestry. However, for some reason, Gutfeld declared that there was actually a link. According to him, Melania stood for what she believed without fear of favor, and over the years, she, as well as her husband, have suffered for this. However, that didn't deter them from sticking to what they believed. Now, Sunny was one of those that called out Melania. However, when the time came for her to stand for what SJE believed, she chose to chicken out. Well, this means she didn't have the right to call out folks that stood for what they believed, even if she thought their beliefs were out of line. Not many people agreed with Greg's comparison of Melania to Sunny. Some folks considered it absolutely baseless. However, Greg felt someone that decided to get complacent because her bloodline stood against justice was wrong to have felt she could call out someone who constantly stood against what she considered injustice. Gutfeld went on to claim that accountability really doesn't change regardless of the era. Since not everyone agreed with Gutfeld, his view created a huge buzz on social media, and soon, there was a debate on social media. Gutfeld had loyalists, and these guys were grateful that someone was finally able to expose Sunny's hypocrisy. Sunny had a brand that was built around dragging racists and structures built around racism. Unfortunately, she felt her ancestors were free to get away with their actions even though they too were racists. The argument in Greg's support was strong, but so was the argument against him. Other folks on the internet that didn't agree with Hom argued that a great deal of disorientation can arise from learning something uncomfortable about what's genealogy. Of course, there is actually a lot of truth in this. Nonetheless, it will be impossible for Sunny to claim she is still in extreme shock. Some level of shock might still be lurking around somewhere, but nothing so big she can't condemn the errors of her ancestors. Greg might be done with Sunny for now, but there is a likelihood he will revisit her actions. Her co-hosts, as expected, will be on her side and might even decide to defend her publicly. This might seem okay, but it definitely will make Greg revisit the situation, and this time, things might not be so easy to deal with. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to check out some of our others on the screen right now.